Libido, right? Libido is so interesting. It's so fascinating. I just want to check that this is playing okay into the group. So, we think of libido as, oh, they have a low, they have a high, you know, they have a high sex drive, a low sex drive. What I learned to understand is that probably all of us have experienced in our life, like sometimes when there's just nothing going on, we can't really connect with it, and sometimes we're a bit like, oh my God, I'm just glad I can't actually feel it right now, because we so just don't actually know what to do with it. Other times in life when it can just be like too much. It can get so overwhelming, right? Sex drive can be like so overwhelming that it can just, you know, and although, yeah, there's some people that feel, you know, that it really, really shuts down. There's other people feeling this way too much kind of going on. But I think most of us have experienced like times where it just gets too overwhelming, and then times where there's just not much there to access. And apart from, okay, maybe trying really hard to kind of repress it and push it down, and then it kind of rising up again and just being like, God, I wish I could just be in a situation with someone where it's not going like completely, you know, out of control. Well, this is our limited understanding. Most people just seeing it as, oh, kind of either it's high or it's low, and there's not really much more to it. Now, what I've come to understand through my own work with myself, and also with like just learning about Taoism, learning to understand my sexuality and work with my sexuality from a Taoist perspective, of course, also like working with clients and yeah, as well, obviously like plays a big part into it, is that essentially, you know, our libido is actually like a really intelligent indicator of what's going on within our body, and that what it's doing has an awful lot to do with emotions, what's going on in the body emotionally, what's happening inside here, because the libido, it's not just some like brute force that just, you know, rises up and overwhelms us, what most people feel it as, because most people kind of see like, you know, just are lacking any kind of relationship or understanding with it, right? Now, we could call it libido, we could call it juiciness. Now, in Taoism, we want to be juicy, right? Yeah, but the last thing that we want is for the sexual energy to control us. We want to be the master, not the master that's repressing, but the master that's created a beautiful connection with that energy, so that actually we're able to use and to utilize this energy. Now, looking at libido from like a Taoist standpoint, right? Okay, so sexual energy, obviously we're created out of sexual energy, and that energy first arises in our perineum, so between our legs, and obviously this is where most people will feel the sexual energy that is down in the lower parts of the body, and many people will never ever feel it in any other parts of the body. Now, naturally, this energy would rise straight up the body. And of course, if you look at, for example, people just living completely in harmony with nature, probably they don't even read or write or wear clothes, you know, living in the jungle and so on. This kind of people have just harmonious relationships with their bodies. They're uneducated, as we say, but they're very much educated about what's going on with their body. And they've just cultivated and gone through like a great relationship with themselves and with their sexual energy. It's really interesting to actually read about tribes, read sort of anthropology and so on, and actually see how in many of these tribes where everyone's walking around naked, you have no sexual harassment, no Me Too movement, no rape, no crime and so on as well. Because the sexual energy is just doing what we want in the Tao it to do, which is just rising up the body, and as it rises up the body, it feeds everything inside of the body, right? It feeds the organs, it feeds the cells, it feeds our creativity, our abundance, our spirituality. It's like a superfood for the soul that when it comes into the body, it just does everything that we need and want it to do. Now, when we're educated, moralized, and so on and so forth, what happens is belief systems get in the way and they stop the natural, healthy flow of this energy. Yes, okay, it can be a shutdown of libido, but more likely actually is a feeling of that energy desperately trying to push up, because the body needs that energy. You know, it's like when we block our sexual energy, which is what happens on the kind of, we could say, unconscious level, when we're actually blocking the sexual energy off, it means that energy is literally not coming and feeding and fueling our body, that we're being denied of this like essential resource and source of energy inside of the body that's like so important for us. And as we're denied of this, the body really becomes desperate, almost as if it's hungry, you know. And this feeling of like excessive pushiness, sexual pushiness, and so on, this is like so yes, so indicative of the energy isn't flowing. It is desperately trying to move. This is very, very different from being empowered in your sexuality, having access to your sexual energy, but not being controlled by it, not having, you know, the possibility of this energy taking over, so that you're not, maybe you're doing things that you're not feeling in control of, or you're in situations where you don't want to get aroused and you're getting aroused. Because this is a loss of energy. Even though the energy is moving, if the energy is taking control of us, it's not going into our cells, it's not going into our body, and we're not being able to utilize it as we would want and hope to. So obviously, you know, the situation with the libido and the sexual energy shut down, it's not generally a beneficial thing. Now, I'll just say there can be a situation where if someone is actually so actively transforming the energy, they may not really have arousal. Okay, this does happen in some rare cases with people. That's a slightly different situation than just having that energy shut down. On the other hand, having all this energy that's kind of taking control of you and a little bit kind of bothering you, and so on, you know. What we want and what we look for in the middle in Taoism is we want a relationship like these people I described earlier living in the tribe, this relationship with these people who have their sexual energy flowing through the body, transforming, turning into this superfood for their soul that's nourishing every part of their lives, who are not feeling controlled in any kind of way by it, you know. And when we look at like what's going on, how are we being controlled by the sexual energy, like anytime if we're feeling the need to repress the sexual energy, even if we're managing to do that and doing a good job of it, it still isn't allowing us to have access to this life force energy. I find a great example is, you know, when you have like an office situation, often there's like, you know, it's not just an office, it can happen anyway, that there's like bad vibes going on between men and women. It's a lot of that comes down to the fact that the women unconsciously are arousing the male sexual energy. And, you know, as women, we don't generally set out trying to kind of wind men up or whatever terms are used, because most women don't really understand the experience of men. This energy is coming up. People don't know what to do with it. It's being pushed down. Not only does it cause kind of irritation, can possibly lead to things like sexual harassment and bad vibes at work, but it can also actually mean the people at work are not actually being able to have access to their creative energy, and they're not literally being able to actually work as well as they can, because this energy that could fuel them in their work that is not there and available to them. And this goes for everybody and anybody, because when we're not actively having this energy come into the body and transforming in the way it was originally meant to, we're missing out on a huge amounts of creativity, productivity, and, you know, even just in regards to the health of the body, this is very important for the health of the body to also have this energy moving. So ultimately, when we start looking at what actually does go on with the libido, right, you know, why is it blocking? You know, we are taught from a young age to shut down our sexual energy. It's not something that we can just switch on and off the way that we think, because it's a natural mechanism. It's like a river. You can't just block the river and hope the river is going to stop flowing, because obviously more water is still coming down. What's blocking the sexual energy and stopping it from actually going where it's supposed to go? Well, we're looking at emotions, belief systems, being told your sexual energy is shameful, you need to keep it down. This is what everybody's being taught to do. This is actually causing that we're not then able to access that energy, number one, and number two, that also that energy, it's like it's going to keep pushing up, and it's going to keep causing all these irritations and annoyance and feelings that we don't we don't want, that are then bothering us in our life and affecting us from doing what we want, affecting our productivity, affecting us creatively, affecting us from having relationships that we want. And obviously, like in terms of this, you know, you can go see a psychologist, spend years and more going around and around all this in your head with a psychologist, and it's emotional work, you know. It's great, it's a good thing, yeah, like talking about stuff can be really good, but to really understand how these blocks are working, because often with a psychologist you could just work on one, but there's all these others as well. So in Taoism we actually understand that the blocks literally have like a central cause, and what we do is we actually hack into the energy field and find these energies that are blocking the sexual energy, so causing the libido to be too pushy or not to be there. And once we start to remove these blocks, we can then start to actually access and get into this energy and consciously move it into our body to use it in the parts of the body that we want. So just to give a bit of an idea of this, you know, you could spend a while working on emotions, like with the techniques that I teach with my clients is we actually hack into the energy field in around 5 weeks to clear out those emotional blockages. And it's really interesting to note what happens. For example, I don't tell clients to give up porn, but once they've removed these emotional blockages within usually 4 to 5 weeks, or even less, sometimes within 2 weeks, removing these emotional blockages, any interest in porn or excessive unhealthy interest in porn, it's just out the window. And often people are finding like their confidence coming back, really, really much more able to connect with other people and connect with people on a loving basis as well. Now, once this first initial 5 weeks of work is done, it's then possible to really go into that sexual energy and start to actually really start working with how to move it around the body, also removing any of the last blockages, because the blockages, they also live in the sexual organs as well. So it's quite important to really go into the sexual organs and remove anything that's there that doesn't belong there too, because you know, this is like the deepest level. So it's kind of like almost the biggest like clean out we can have. We clean out the body, you know, and by the way, nobody needs to be perfect, nobody needs to be like 100% pure and clean yet, but we need to clear enough that everything can flow and work and so on. And from this point we can then go into the sexual energy, also because it's very important to learn to work with the energy on this much less volatile level and get the energy, you know, get the skills of cultivating energy, moving energy, reforming, transforming, refining, and so on, so that we actually have like the energy system working properly. I mean, this libido thing is massive. It's really, really massive. And the more that I've learned to connect through the Tao practices and other practices into my libido, the more that I've really learned to actually just have just have this beautiful relationship with my own being. And when I start to learn to really, really understand it, to work with it, to move the energy, to notice when is the sexual energy showing me where I have blocks and places where I can clear out the blocks, to then create this beautiful relationship with my own energy and others as well, is like it's really, really transformed my life. And I think listening to your libido, you know, it's something that you can just take onto deeper and deeper and deeper levels. And as you learn to work with it, and you see there's so many intricacies to it, so many different messages that can be coming from it. And as you just go deeper and deeper into it, it's literally like there's this spiritual transformation, this real spiritual relationship being built with what is, I think, the most like visceral of energies, the most physical of energies that we have. And where that, like, through the consciousness and through the conscious working with this energy, it actually comes into this beautiful, incredible, amazing, like, spiritual sexual relationship within your whole being, which just absolutely inspires you from every cell within your being. So if you're watching this, and I know that some people who are watching are already working with me, but if you're watching this and you want to know more about how you can work with this energy, I invite you to drop me a message I have some resources I can send to people, or if I think it's right that it might be possible to work together, I can also actually invite you for a brief 15-minute consultation just to see if there's any resonance and synchronicity going on there. So I've enjoyed doing this live. I'm open for any questions. I know that this is a personal, private topic, and I normally only see when I ask questions about this thing, because I totally understand there's so much shame and insecurity around sexuality. So normally I only see the comments and questions actually coming up from my clients who've worked enough through that shame and insecurity that they can actually talk about openly about what's going on. So I totally understand if you're not feeling ready to share publicly. Drop me a DM with any questions. I'll get back to you either with some free resources or what I think would be able to help you. And I hope you really enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Have a gorgeous day. Mwah.